guys, this is a full head to toe mobility routine. Once you get really good at it, like I've done it in about 12 minutes, but right away it takes much longer to do. So you can take all the movements out of this and do it as its own kind of mini workout. I've had some people do it and say like, man, it feels like a workout by itself. Or you can just take certain movements out of it that you really like that address areas that are difficult for you. But first off, we're gonna do our wrists and ankles. For this, it's best to have your shoes off so you can really feel the ground while you're squatting and everything. So the first one that we'll do to help with wrist mobility is our wrist mobilization. So if you have a watch on, probably just take it off to make it easy. But we're gonna put the band as low on your wrist as you possibly can. And then you gotta kind of jimmy yourself over to the plate. So the 25-pound plate is one of the things you need. A band is another thing you need. You can do all this stuff without the bands or the weights or anything too, and I'll mention that in each one of them. But you're gonna put your other hand over the top. We'll start on the right side for everything. Left hand on top of the right, and all you're gonna do is rock forward and back, create space in that wrist joint. And you should feel a big stretch on the back side of your wrist here. Okay, that's number one. Now number two, we'll slip the band around our ankle. Notice that the band is really low here. And again, you can do all these without the band if you don't have access to it. But what you'll do is put your foot up on the plate. Many of you have done this with me. But we want the band to be as low as it can be on your ankle. If you don't have the band, that's okay. We can always just do the kettlebell part, but we want to put a kettlebell on top and press down, and all you're going to do is rock forward and back on that ankle. You should feel some weird things going on in your ankle and a good stretch in your Achilles, maybe a little bit of calf if you're really tight through your calf, and this will help with all of your squat mobility stuff. So just about 10 or 15 seconds, forward or back there. Okay, we'll take the tension out of the band. Next up, we have a hip opener. So what we're gonna do is move the insertion of the band up to about knee height or so here. It doesn't have to be exact, but we want it about knee height. We want to put it uncomfortably high. That's what most of you know it as at this point. But I always like to tug on the band to get as far back as I can to create as much compression or as much pull through the hip as I can. And then from here, all you're gonna do is stay nice and upright and just rock forward and back. Okay. Now, in my right glute on the right side, because it's around my right leg, I'm trying to turn on that glute to increase the stretch just a little bit the entire time. Rock forward and back for a good 15 to 20 seconds here, and really try to get it uncomfortable in your hip. Okay, that's the third one. Next up, take the tension out. We're gonna put the band just barely above knee height, insertion still at about knee height there. And we're gonna get in the world's greatest stretch. Most of you have done 1,000 different variations of this at this point, but this is the best one, in my opinion. So if you wanna come to the front, what we'll do is set up again so the band is just above knee height. Right foot is forward, because we're doing everything right side first. And all I did was quarter turn to the left. Both hands go down inside that right foot, and I'm gonna extend my left leg back as far as I possibly can. The better you do with this, the better you'll be able to keep your shoulders and your hips down as you do it. So all I'm gonna do for about 5 or 10 seconds is just let that band pull on my knee, create space in the hip. If you need to create more tension, you can always scoot further, closer, or further away. Okay, after that, about 10 or 15 seconds, I'm gonna pull the band inside to touch my shoulder here, or not quite that far if you're not that mobile yet, but I'm gonna do it 3 times, and each time I go out, I wanna let the knee try to go a little bit further than it was on the previous rep. So pull, and really try to relax through the hip. Last one, I'm gonna have my left hand kickstand on the ground, and I'm gonna let this pull try to relax through my hip still. I'm gonna open up and rotate towards the ceiling as far as I can, and then come down and across. Down and across isn't just for looks. If you can put your hand on the ground and kind of pull to get a stretch in your mid and lower back or your lumbar and thoracic spine, go ahead and do it. If not, just reach as far as you can, down and across. And I'm gonna do that 3 times, okay? And then knee on the ground, take the tension out. Should feel a little bit uncomfortable in your hip, for sure. Now we'll do that same series, all of that stuff on the left side. So I'm gonna put the band around my left wrist now and put the band back down to the bottom and put it as low on my wrist as I possibly can. Okay, and then I'll grab to get the hand on top of the plate here, right hand on top of left, and then I'm gonna keep this elbow straight and rock side to side and try to get a big stretch in the wrist. If you have been working a desk job for a long time and you're developing carpal tunnel, stuff like this is necessary to help create space with the band and also just to stretch. And these are stretches that you can even do a little bit at work standing at your desk too. So a few times there, and then we will attach the band, keeping it low. Okay, we'll put the band around your ankle. Remember on this one, we want it to be as low as we can possibly get it. We want it to pull back and downward below those two bones on the side here. And then all you're gonna do from here, where'd my kettlebell go? All you're gonna do from here is push down on the kettlebell and then rock forward and back. I kinda like to put the kettlebell under my armpit. You can do it however you want. We just want good downward compression as you do this one. Notice I'm trying to keep my heel down. If it comes up off a little bit, that's okay, because it might help you get a little bit more stretch, especially if you're not very mobile in your ankles. So, a few times there, and then I'll take the tension out. Now, again, we go up to about knee height here, left foot in the band now, and we're gonna do uncomfortably high on this left side and try to create some space in that left hip. So if you like to move the 25-pound plate out of the way each time, you can, or you can just use it as a guideline for how far back you should go. So way up in that hip, okay? Scoot back as far as you can. Left foot is gonna step back, okay? And from here, nice and upright, I'm gonna let myself rock forward and back, creating big tension and big squeeze in that hip. And then remember to turn on the glute in this one to help with the squeeze just a little bit more. And it should feel uncomfortable, especially when you come to the front here, staying nice and upright. And a few times there and we're good. Now, we're gonna flip a quarter turn to the right, put the band down by your knee, right? And we got world's greatest stretch on the other side now. So, now, band is around the left knee, both hands inside my left foot. I'm gonna get that right leg up and back. And a note too is if you can't quite do it with the right leg straight, just do it with the knee on the ground and really work on relaxing your hip. That's okay too. But this is the more advanced version. And also we want to keep this foot flat on the ground. We don't want it to tilt outside. This will help with tibial rotation in your squat pattern. So really just let it pull for about 10 or 15 seconds. Now we'll do our 3 pulls inside, squeeze hard, and then let it relax. Squeeze hard, and then let it relax. Another time, and all the way out, and relax. Now we'll kickstand the right hand. We're gonna open up all the way to the left as far as you can, and then down and across. We'll do that 3 times. There's 1. Little crack in the back is never a bad thing. There's 2. Trying to relax through the hip. Let this band pull on the knee. And 3. Beautiful. Knee on the ground. Take the tension out. No graceful way to get out of that. However feels most comfortable to you. After that, we'll go right into a downward dog. So I always like to start on all 4s in tabletop position. And from here, all you're trying to do is extend your hips up and get your legs as straight as possible. And you can rock back, pushing through both of your hands to make it easier. You can rotate your hands out just a little bit if you don't have great shoulder strength at this point, but try to keep your legs as straight as possible as you do this. You can also pedal your feet back and forth just to work on your ankle mobility a little bit again and to emphasize stretch on one side versus the other, going back and forth. Just about 15 to 20 seconds there. Most of these are about 15 to 20 seconds. There's a lot of different movements. So now we got the big 4, or they're commonly known as the big 3, but I kind of modified them to be a different version of the big 3. So the first movement that we'll do will go on your back, okay? We have your dead bugs, okay? It's a dead bug because it's like you're laying here like a dead cockroach with your feet and your hands in the air, but head stays on the ground. First off, we're gonna do 6 reps of opposite arm, opposite leg. So my right hand and left leg move together. I'm trying to tighten up in my abs
and kind of push my lower back into the ground a little bit if you're brand new to it. At least that's the cue that we like to give. And then you'll do the other side, going back and forth. Just spend a quick second, fully extended, but really make sure to try to squeeze your core. So there's 3, there's 4, there's 5, and there's 6. And you should be squeezing your abs so hard, even on a simple movement, that it's making you huff and puff a little bit, kind of like you can probably hear from me. Next up, just as to stretch a little bit in between, happy baby pose. Well, this isn't full happy baby pose, we'll pull at the knees instead. But you're gonna grab your knees, pull down and back, and try to flatten your spine on the ground. This one just feels good. Next up, we have our last set of dead bugs. Now we're gonna do same side. So right arm and right leg move together, squeezing your abs again, trying to create 360-degree tension all the way around your core. There's 3, we got 6 of them again. 4, 5, and you can feel free to go slower if you want, but definitely not faster. Okay, after that, I like to windshield wipe my knees back and forth. Again, just to stretch the lower back a little bit, help it feel good. It is important to feel good when you're doing these as well. Okay, next up, we have a side plank on each side. You're gonna go with whatever variation you can for at least 10 seconds. So if you can't do a side plank from your feet yet for 10 seconds, don't worry, you'll get there, but you gotta build up to it. So you're either gonna go from your feet with your legs straight, okay, which is like this, okay, and then I would hold for 10 to 20 seconds, somewhere in there, just so I feel my core squeezing, especially through the bottom side here. Or you can have your knees on the ground with your feet back and go up and hold there for 10 to 20 seconds. The 2 cues on this one are to try to squeeze your glutes so your hips stay forward, and to try to rotate your top shoulder back. So for that, I like to put this hand on the bottom shoulder just to make sure the top shoulder stays back. We did about 20 seconds over there. Now we'll do 20 seconds on the other side. If you want to go directly over top to see the angle, and I'll do it from my feet here, and I'll just do it for 10 seconds, and we'll go up, squeeze the glutes so the hips stay forward, and rotate the top shoulder back. You can even put your hand up if you want, a little more difficult to balance that way. I like to go here to start. Whole forearm is on the ground. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Very good. So that's your side planks. The dead bugs were for the front, side planks for the side. Now we're gonna do bird dogs, which is for a little bit of everything, and your glutes as well. So back to tabletop position, hands directly under your shoulders. We're gonna extend, just like on the dead bugs, we're gonna extend opposite arm and opposite leg. Always do the leg first and get it set up in a solid position. What we don't wanna see is we don't wanna see the hip open and rotate as you extend back. We wanna stay in this exact position. Squeeze your core, okay, all 360 degrees of your trunk. Extend that leg as far as you can. Opposite arm goes out in front. Clench that fist. We want to feel tension all the way from this fist down to the foot of the leg that's extended. And we'll hold here for 20 seconds as well. Squeezing your abs. You should be a little bit out of breath by the end of this because you're squeezing your abs so hard. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Good. And then you can relax just for a second if you need a quick break because you're out of breath. And then we'll do the other side, foot first or leg first. And we're not so worried about height of the foot. We're worried more about extension. There's times when it's good to worry about height, but right now we're mostly worried about extension. Clench the fist, squeeze and hold. And we'll hold there for about another 13 seconds. And during this, you want to think about keeping your back at the same angle the entire time. You don't want to dip down or really pull up. You want to be at a good neutral angle for 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. And I always like to sink back a little bit into child's pose, just to stretch out the lower back. Okay, last one on the ground here. We're gonna grab a hip circle band. If you don't have a band, that's fine. You can do the same thing without the band. But we're gonna put it around both legs, just barely above knee height, okay? And the tension of the band is entirely up to you. If you're just starting, use a really light hip circle band. But we want your feet to be about shoulder width apart, so pretty wide. Toes facing slightly out. And we're gonna pull your toes up off the ground. And from here, we're gonna get our hips up as high as we can. And we wanna tilt our hips toward us before our lower back even comes off the ground. So your butt should come off the ground first. So we're gonna tilt and go up. You can keep hands flat on the ground. You can keep them up by your chest. I just prefer flat on the ground. And hold for another 2, 1, and down. So this one, we should be feeling in your glutes. You should be actively pushing out against the band. We'll go up and we'll hold for 5. So push out against the band, getting your hips as high as you can. You should feel it big time in your glutes. And time, we got 3 of those total. So we'll do 1 more here and up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Good. And just by the end of those 3 reps, your glutes should be completely on fire just from those 3. Next thing, we'll stand up, right? And we want to practice our squat pattern and keeping our knees out and working on a little tibial rotation too. And then just the big thing is engaging your glutes at the bottom of the squat. A lot of people lose the ability to do that over time. So regular squat width with your feet, whatever's most comfortable for you. All you're gonna do is squat down. You can keep your hands out in front for balance if you want, but we're gonna hold for 5 seconds again, getting as low as you can. And on this again, we wanna push out against the bands actively, hold for 5 seconds, and back up. So there's 1, we got 2 more. Push out against the bands, push, 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 push. You should feel your glutes engaging on your backside a little bit, and up. Let's do 1 more. Push, 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 push. And up. Good. Okay, and then we can slip the bands off there. Okay, next one up is a little bit more advanced. All you have to have is something to hang on to. Like for me, these poles here on the sled are gonna be pretty much perfect for it. But what we're gonna do is set up a couple of feet away from the poles here. These are called hip airplanes. So you wanna get your chest and your foot horizontal like an airplane. So I'm not just bending at the hips and keeping that back leg down. I want this back leg to go way back and up, okay? Now from here, I should be feeling a huge stretch in the back of my leg. You wanna try to keep this leg as straight as you can. If it bends a little bit, that's okay. But we wanna work eventually to having almost a completely straight leg. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna open up opposite of the foot that's down first. And I'm gonna try to stack my right hip up on top of my left. Okay, you'll see yogis be able to do this without even holding on to anything. Okay, after that, just about 5 seconds there. And then we're gonna go to the opposite side. This one gets really, really uncomfortable, and we're gonna hold for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and time. Oofta. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side after you shake it off. So first off is getting a good position down where the back foot is high, and then we'll open to rotate away from the foot first for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, good. Okay, and you can stand up quick if you need a little break, that's okay too. And then we'll go to the foot, and we're really trying to drive that hip down and toward the opposite foot. 3, 2, 1, and time. Very good. Okay, so that's your hip airplanes. Next up, we have support squats. So this just helps with the depth of your squat. Everybody's got to be able to squat deep. That's one thing that we fundamentally believe in. So you're gonna go just about a foot away from the pole or whatever you were using to hang on to here. Again, regular squat width, and all you're gonna do is climb down the pole to get as deep into a squat position as you possibly can. Now everybody's gonna be at a different level, right? Some people who are just starting out might only be able to get this low, and in that case you can use this to support you and just try to pull down lower if you can. But ideally what we want to do is be able to stay nice and upright and really pull yourself down and into position. I always use my elbows to make sure that my knees stay out the entire time. Here we're gonna hold for about 10 or 15 seconds, getting real deep into the squat, keeping your back as flat as you can, just like you would in a regular squat. And then we'll climb back up to break for a second. Now we're gonna do it a second time, but you'll scoot a little bit further away. Okay, same exact thing, except we're gonna lean forward a little bit more now. You can get a little bit around in the lower and mid back because we're trying to stretch that here. I'm gonna hang on to it with my left hand, open and rotate to the right as high as you can, point straight towards the ceiling. Okay, and then I'll go to the other side. Back and forth for 2 times on each side, trying to see your hand the entire time so you get some cervical or neck movement and rotation going on here too. and keeping your feet flat on the ground the entire time as best you can, and really reach. Good, and then we'll climb back up. Ooh, so your hips should be pretty uncomfortable by the end of that. And then the next thing up, we already did the rotations, is with a kettlebell. Okay, so you'll need a kettlebell as well. So if you want to set up in front of me, first one that we're going to do is just a prying goblet squat. Regular squat width here. We want your elbows in tight and the kettlebell in close to you the entire time. We don't want it to get too far out in front of you. But you're going to squat all the way down, okay, as deep as you can. If you can get all the way down here, then what we're going to do is put your elbows inside your knees and pry out on your hips. Really try to make this uncomfortable in your hips. The more uncomfortable you can make yourself now, the more problems you'll avoid in the future, okay? If you can't quite get that low, again, just do another support squat where you're just going as low in the squat as you can and holding at the bottom. Or you can do it without the support and just really drop down into the squat, okay, without a weight, or you can even do it with a weight and just keep your elbows on top of your knees and work on trying to dip your hips a little bit lower at the bottom. But if you can get all the way down, we're here pushing up just for about 15 or 20 seconds. Most of the stuff you can do for about as long as I'm telling you, or as I'm talking during the video here. Okay, and then next one up is the same exact thing, and we're gonna do 2 reps. So it's that bottom position of that goblet squat, but we're not gonna pry out this time. We're just gonna get to the bottom. Okay, relax there just for a second. And then what we're gonna do is bring our butt up just a couple of inches, push out in front, squeeze your abs. 3, 2, 1, and down. Good, and relax. You should feel a huge squeeze in your core, and especially in your lower back on that one to get your erectors activated. On the next one, we're gonna push up instead of out in front. So it's the same thing, hips up just a couple of inches, and then we'll press it just barely up above head height and hit it. 3, 2, 1, and time. Good, and your whole core should be good and tight when you're pushing overhead on that one. All right, we're almost there. Now we get to go into some of the upper body stuff. So next up is some banded W's. For this one, these TheraBands are great. And the tension that you use, entirely up to you. We would rather have more range of motion than more tension, because this isn't necessarily to burn up the muscles. But what you're gonna do is start with your hands at about shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit narrower, with your palms facing up. We wanna keep your elbows into your side, and you're gonna pull all the way out, keeping your elbows in as best you can. They won't stay perfectly into your sides unless you have really, really good external rotation, but we really wanna work on keeping your elbows in as you do this one. And then you're gonna pull all the way to your chest, and then try to pull back through it as well. So you can see the band touches pretty low on my chest here. And we're gonna do 8 of these. You should feel some squeeze in between your shoulder blades as well. Okay, I'm assuming that you've already done at least 6, so we'll do 2 more. All the way out, big squeeze on the back end. Last one, should feel some weird things going on in through the shoulder. So 8 of those total. I like to pause and squeeze on the last one just to get a little burn, and then roll out your neck afterwards. Usually feels good to roll it out at least a little bit. All right. Next one up, actually with the same thing. You can do it either with the band not doubled over like we had it for the W's, or I like to double it over just to give a little bit more tension. Again, it depends on the tension of the band that you have, okay? But what you'll do is pull out against the band, and then we're gonna go up and over the top, okay? Just as far as you can. We wanna keep your arms as straight as you can the entire time, and you should feel a big stretch in through your upper chest and in your shoulders. Okay, and try to find spots that are really kind of sticky and difficult for you, and focus on those. No exact science to this, but about 8 of these as well. So let's do 2 more, all the way over, all the way back. Good, last one. As straight of arms as you can. Notice if one shoulder feels tighter than the other. Ooh. And again, you can roll out your neck on those afterwards. Okay? If you don't have access to a band on those 2, what you'll do is just arm circles, starting small, getting bigger and bigger and bigger as you go, okay? And then we'll do the other direction, same thing, smaller to bigger to bigger to bigger to bigger. And you can do each of those for about 20 seconds. Okay, let's go into the next one. For the next one, we need a foam roller. We're gonna stretch out your shoulders and your thoracic spine with this. If you wanna move away just a little bit. So what you'll do on this one is stack your one hand on top of the other, doesn't matter which. But we want your hips over the top of your knees, because if they're too far back, this mostly ends up being a lat stretch, and we'll get to those eventually, but not right now. We want it to mostly be shoulders. So hips stay over the top of knees, one hand on top of the other. You're gonna push out in front of you and sink in as far as you can. You should feel a big stretch in your shoulders here, and we'll stay in it for about 10 to 15 seconds. So for purposes of the video, we'll just do 10 seconds or so. Okay, pull it back in, and then you can put the other hand on bottom, other hand on top, opposite of last time, and sink all the way in again. Really trying to let everything relax in through your shoulders. Should feel a big stretch in through your shoulders here. You can rock forward and back just a little bit if it feels okay. About 10 seconds there. And good, and then you can pull it back in. Next up is thoracic extension. This isn't necessarily the best thoracic extension exercise that you can do, but it's one of them. And it's important to at least start with something on thoracic extension, because a lot of us get so rolled forward from our regular jobs, whatever it might be, driving, desk job, whatever. But we want to keep your hips on the ground here. And what you're going to do is keep your hips on the ground, get the foam roller to kind of the bottom of your shoulder blades. We want it right kind of in the middle of your back. And then you're going to reach back as far as you can. So if you've never done this before, just keep your hands down by your shoulders or down by your head or chin or whatever, and just reach back as far as you can. If you're pretty comfortable doing this and this doesn't cause you a lot of pain, reach overhead to get a little bit of stretch in the shoulders too, and just a little bit more in that thoracic spine. This one will stay in for about 15 or 20 seconds, and this is a good drill to do every day at some point, especially before you work out, especially before you do any overhead pressing. 3, 2, 1, and time. This one, when you come out of it really nice, slow and controlled. You don't want to come too quickly out of it. And that is your thoracic extension. So we're almost there. Next up, a lot of overhead pressing problems and shoulder mobility problems start in the lats. So we're gonna come over. You just have to find a spot. This is another one that you can do at home. Maybe on a railing somewhere. You can probably find something that's, somewhere between chest and hip height to grab onto. But what you'll do is we're trying to target your lats here and stretch your lats. So you'll grab underhand with one hand on whatever you're grabbing onto, and then the other hand is gonna link over the top. The purpose for that is just so that you don't have to grip so much on here, because if you have to grip a lot, it decreases the stretch. So put the other hand over the top, and all I'm gonna do is sink down and back, okay? And really try to relax through the shoulder, okay? You can see my delt is really loose here. Try to relax through the shoulder, and then to get more stretch, you can tilt towards that palm, towards the arm of that palm that's rotated upward or externally rotated. Okay, and let it stretch right in here is where you should feel it, and try to get it again just a little bit uncomfortable, about 15 seconds there, and then we'll flip over to the other side. Now the other palm is up, link the other hand over the top. We're gonna sit back as far as you can comfortably, again trying to feel the stretch right in through here, and sit back, 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 relax the shoulder, make it a little bit uncomfortable. About 15 seconds there, so we'll go for another 7. It's more important to stretch your lats than most people realize, just so that you can have good overhead mobility when you do any overhead pressing motions or anything like that. So let's head back over for the last couple here. Feels nice to do workouts or do things without your shoes on too, and it's important to do that sometimes. Next one up is a banded rotation and press. Where did my black band go? There it is. So you just want to find somewhere that when you're on one knee, it's at about shoulder height. So this is a little bit low, but it'll still work. Again, it doesn't have to be exact. As long as we're getting the motions that we want to get, we're okay with that. Obviously, I wouldn't want you to do this with the band all the way at the ground, but so on here, I'm going to put it as high as I can. And I always just double knot it over to make sure it stays in place. And then from here, we'll scoot back. We want a really light band with this one. So this one's probably actually a little bit too heavy, but I'll show you on this side first. So I have the band in my left hand, I'm grabbing from the bottom here. Right knee goes forward, and then what I'm gonna do is it's 3 parts, right? There's a little bit more advanced way to do this, but I'll do the kind of lower version today, just so that it's easy to remember and easy to follow along. First thing you're gonna do is keep your elbow high and pull all the way back to about where your shoulder is, trying to keep your upper body neutral the entire time, so keep the elbow high. Second thing you'll do is rotate. Okay, so see how my forearm is mostly straight up and down, and this is a little bit too heavy of a band. But then I'm gonna press overhead, keeping my elbow and my hand back the entire time, and then I'll go to the start. And really take your time on this one. So step 1 is pull, step 2 is rotate, step 3 is push overhead, and then back to the start. Okay, we'll do 1 more of those. Pull with the elbow high, step 1. Step 2 is rotate. Step 3 is push, and down to the start. Okay, if you're in a hurry, just about 3 of those. You can always do more if you like them. And if this one causes you pain, just skip it all together. The banded W's and the other stuff, we're pretty much enough for it, at least to start. And then we'll do the other side, pull, rotate, and push overhead, back to the start. Pull, rotate, and push, back to the start. We got 1 more there. Go slow, pull, focus on quality, not quantity, rotate, and push. What do you think? Am I pretty, oh, I'm actually back a little bit. I'm an overachiever, I guess. So that was your 3 there. And then the last one that I like to do is grab a band. Now that your legs have had a little bit of time to relax, is just to do an overhead squat with the band overhead. So regular squat width. And just to do about 3 to 5 of these, keeping the band overhead, trying to keep your shoulders down and back as you do it, and working on staying nice and upright in your squatting motion. The more upright you can stay, the better. So about 3 to 5 of those, and then as you do this more, you'll notice that after doing the support squats, the goblet squats, all that, you should be able to stay a little bit more upright in your squatting motion. So that's your full mobility routine. From head to toe, we covered just about everything, and some of those aren't necessarily the best exercises for that area of your body, but they're the easiest ones to start out with, but also difficult enough to where it's not like your regular stretching class that you'll see online or on YouTube or whatever. It's best to usually do this one beforehand, especially if you're doing a bigger, more compound lift like squats or deadlifts or sumo deadlifts, hex bar deadlifts, whatever, and especially if you're bench pressing. But you can also do it afterwards as well. Or like I said at the beginning, you can do it as its own workout too. So next up, we're gonna do the post stretch, static stretch. It's mostly static anyways, and we'll show you what that's all about. Stay at it.